Hi, I'm Andrea Valdez and I'm bringing you the Manual 2.0. Today we're at Central Market, the original location in Austin, Texas, and I'm with Chef Vance Eli, who's been with the company for 11 years, and he's going to teach me how to make Texas caviar. So before we get started, I thought we could talk a little bit about just the Texas roots of this particular recipe. I've read that it was Helen Corbett's original recipe, but it seems to have kind of gotten away from her original intent, and now there's a lot of different variations. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Right. I think that what happened was that she made the cookbook so accessible and everybody would go up and shop and pick up the cookbook while they were there. And then I think that it morphed with each of the kind of the women's league cookbooks. You end up with the regional cookbooks that everybody comes around. And when I was going just to make sure that I was up on things, kind of Googled around and found that everybody's family has a totally different way of doing it. And so I think it's like mom's meatloaf. You grow up with your one recipe and that's what you come from. We used a lot of fresh ingredients because being from the Rio Grande Valley, that's what was available to us. And so why not use what you had right around? And I think that's what ended up happening is whatever was close, whatever was available.
So what ingredients will we be working with today?
So what we started out with were fresh black-eyed peas, and they're already conveniently hulled for us here. And this is just under a pound container, but it works. It says to use a pound in the recipe, but a 10-ounce container is fine rather than going and getting two of these. It just explodes. You put these into a pan with some water to cover, and when they are boiled down and it's soft, so you just keep
So about how long does that
pulling
take?
one out. About 8 minutes on a boil.
Okay.
You don't want to leave it unattended because it will boil over, and it's one of those wonderful things to clean up off the stove.
Of course.
And so just
So
keep
8
on
minutes
it.
for fresh. Is there going to be a longer cook time if you use dried?
If you use dried, you soak them overnight.
Okay, just
And
like
then,
any other bean.
Right,
Okay.
and then it's pretty much 8 to 10 minutes to cook them after that.
Okay.
They really do well compared to a pinto bean that when it dries it takes so long to cook. The black-eyed peas really react real well. And in a pinch, you could get canned and just rinse it off and start from there as though you had gotten to this step. So
Okay,
a couple of different ways to go at it. From there we end up with bell peppers, pimento, tomatoes. I think just for taste and for holding, that taking the seeds out of the tomato is a really good idea. It keeps us from getting real watery, and you can actually make it a day or two in advance and keep it in the refrigerator. And I think that kind of stays true to Helen's idea, was that you could make, for a very large group, a salad like this and then have it held. And when they were sitting there and doing things in the banquet hall for 100 people, they had to really think outside the box. The fresh cilantro, give it a wash, and some green onions to complement the red onion. The red onion gives less of a bark later, so if you're really loving your guests and you don't want everybody to have to worry about tasting onions later in the evening, use a red onion and it'll be calmer. And if you chop them up in advance and then hold them in cold water, or put them in the refrigerator in that cold water, it leaches out a little bit more of that extra oniony flavor that maybe isn't going to complement this dish particularly well. Drain that off before you use it, and that's what we've done. We've actually had these chilled in the refrigerator, already chopped up, but drained them off right before we started with this, and ready to go into the bowl. And so we have...
Is that an entire onion?
This
then?
is a half of a red onion.
Half of a red onion, okay.
Everybody's red onion is different, so if you end up with about a cup of chopped onion, then you're still good to go. Green bell pepper for color.
And is that about a quarter cup or so?
It was the one bell pepper.
Oh, okay.
It was just a smaller bell pepper.
Okay.
Pimentos, just whatever comes in the jar, you can rinse it off and put it in. These are our tomatoes, and you can see where this has been chopped for quite some time and there isn't any liquid that is pouring out. So this is what I'm saying about with the meat, is if you cut them and take the seeds out, and the easiest way to do that, cut the tomato and just reach in there with your finger.
Oh, just gut it.
And pop that little piece out. And if you're doing other things, you're making a sauce or something like that, you could add this in without wasting it. And if you're a gardener at home, you can actually put these seeds onto a paper towel and let them dry off. And in the springtime, and springtime in Texas is always a little bit different, but first part of March, if you put them into the soil, you can actually grow your own tomatoes from the ones you already purchased.
So about how many tomatoes? Also about a cup's worth?
It's about a cup's worth. I like to get tomatoes that are still on the vine. It gives them at least a fair shot at tasting really nice and delicious. And so we're looking for red, plump tomatoes with a nice heaviness to them, something that feels a little bit heavy for its size. Nice smooth skin, no blemishes, and the guys and girls that are down in the produce department really take care of it, so you don't have to worry about it so much, but it's something to look for. And then the jalapenos, it's up to you at this point. We've already taken the seeds out of the tomato, so if you're going to do that and you have the highfalutin guests coming over, then I also take the seeds out of the peppers, so that way nobody ends up with a surprise of a seed in the back of their tooth, and you know, they're running around at your party.
Plus the heat, right?
The heat, yes, is right there also.
Okay.
So we'll add the jalapenos.
And then, my favorite.
Yes, we have cilantro and green onions, and I think that was something that my mom started adding because it was something that grew very well in our gardens, and so again, if you have it around, then that's the thing to do. And then from there, you can either use a pre-made Italian dressing.
Oh, okay.
And so then, you know, the fast route, you can use the canned black eyed peas, rinse them off, get some Italian dressing and put that in, and do a little bit of the knife work, so that way people, you know, think that you might have been cooking all day. If you're in a real pinch, you can actually take Rotel tomato, rinse that off of its juices, and so that already has the peppers and the tomatoes already chopped up for you, and a little bit of onion in there, and so you can do that with the cans of black eyed peas, and it's a real fast thing in case somebody shows up to your party unannounced. But for us, we are going to use the olive oil and vinegar because...
And that's just to dress it and
it's
kind of
just
bring
to
everything
dress
together?
And so looking for about a half and half measure, about a quarter cup of each, so that you end up with a half a cup of dressing. And if you're going to have guests that are coming over tomorrow, you could build it to this stage and just leave it without even mixing it. What that'll do is it'll prevent all the flavors from melding into one solid flavor, and you'll be able to pull out the different flavors of the different vegetables that are in here. If it's going to be something like you wanted to do the pre-prep for on a Friday for a Sunday party, you could chop up each of the individual ingredients and put them into a Ziploc or a Tupperware container separate from one another and hold it together, and then build it right before your party, and that way you have a nice fresh thing without having to worry about it, you know. It's nice to have your feet up about an hour before the party drinking some champagne before your guests arrive. So then the final stage is to actually mix these ingredients, and
oh, it's so colorful.
yes, I think it's fantastic. You know, for so many people, you know, the black eyed peas are for luck, and you know, you have to make sure that you get this in for your New Year's parties.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely. And then how do you serve this? Just...
I like to have it in a small bowl that's been chilled, and so it's a cool dish, and we can serve it with chips.
Oh, so it is kind of like a pico,
right,
or a
and it's just like a pico.
Okay.
My family also, because of New Year's, would have cornbread with our beans, so I could actually see having a slice of cornbread and some of our wonderful Texas caviar that way.
There you go. That sounds wonderful. this is all plated up, and we've got cornbread, Texas caviar, chips. Looks good to me.
I think so.
All right, can we try
Happy
it?
New Year.
Happy New Year.